Hey everyone, Matt Thomas here. Thanks for watching. So this video is a refilm of a previous video I did, which had tons of great information, but I'll be honest, it was a little long, it was a little dry, I was kind of very monotone during the video. So I'm going to try to trim this up, cut the video time in half, which means I'm going to skip over a lot of quotes. I'm going to reference a lot of research, but I won't get into the specifics just to save time. I highly encourage you to pause the video at any time. Look at the research yourself, follow up on it, just to see that what I'm saying is valid and accurate. But that being said, let's get into it. So if you were to ask Matt, what is one strategy that I can help my students apply what I'm teaching in class into the real world? And what's a way to make like the learning very efficient for students? I would say this: cross curricular instruction. I'll refer to it as CCI throughout this video because I know I'm going to mess up saying cross-curricular instruction if I keep saying it. So this was from the National Research Council findings, and they found that cross-curricular instruction is one of the best ways to teach because what it does is it allows students to learn fewer concepts and have more opportunity to learn the material. So it's supported by neuroscience and cognitive psychology. Oftentimes, education strategies are based on theory. Cross-curricular instruction is based on how the brain learns. It's a way to bridge the gap between theory and practice. So the National Research Council found when they did a huge study on learning, and they found that there's two types of learners. There's novice learners and expert learners. And novice learners are people who essentially memorize a multitude of facts without meaning. That's different than meaningless facts. Facts without meaning, like here, memorize this, here's a test, great, let's move on. And oftentimes the brain just deletes that information. And the NRC came to the conclusion that education tends to produce novice learners. And what we want to focus on is creating expert learners. And they define expert learners like this: being able to apply concepts throughout multiple disciplines. So learning things they learn in class, being able to apply that throughout multiple disciplines and into the real world. And so I give this quick example like this. As an English teacher, I would teach storytelling, right? We'd write stories, we'd analyze stories, etc. And we'd talk about conflict and character motivations and resolution and climactic change of events, etc. Those concepts can be applied to history. So if a history teacher is talking about a war that the students have no idea about, have never heard of that war before, they know what questions to ask. Like, conflict. Okay, what were the motivations from both sides, right? Character motivations, how did it resolve? What was the big change in events? What was the climactic change that kind of turned the tide for the war, etc.? And so just by learning those fewer concepts, that can be applied throughout multiple disciplines. So essentially, what the NRC was saying, we want to create learners who can implement a few important concepts into multiple scenarios, multiple circumstances, multiple situations. And they did a great study. I'll let you read it. They did a great study about AP students, his history students, who just memorize a bunch of facts versus history experts that can apply the knowledge of the concepts in throughout multiple historical documents, even when they've never seen the documents before. Like experts of different types of history looking at documents they've never seen before, and they can apply the concepts to make meaning of those documents. I'll let you look at that. So let's get into it. How do we do CCI? Essentially, cross-curricular instruction, it's not just two teachers taking turns teaching. It's not really co-teaching, but rather two teachers or two or more classes focusing and reinforcing specific concepts that can be applied, throughout the learning process. And so essentially, here's how it looks like in practice. So a close friend of mine, a great teacher, Andrew Paulson, he and I used to use, we used to collaborate on multiple lessons throughout the year. He's an AP Human Geography teacher, and I had my advanced English classes. So what we did was I brought my lesson plans throughout the year, what I'm working on. We looked at his lessons throughout the year, what he was working on, and we see where we could line up instruction. So he did this unit called the migration unit. And I said, that ties into my biographical unit. We could line that up. So during his migration unit, he teaches the students about what's called the push-pull factors, why people move from one place to another, what pushed them away from one place and what brought them in or pulled them into another. So during my biographical unit, I asked the students to interview someone and write a biographical essay about that person. And one of the things the students had to focus on was what pulled them to where that person is now and what pushed him or her away from where that person was now. And we talked about how in real life, when people change jobs or when they're moving to neighborhoods, what pulls them to a neighborhood or pushes them away from a neighborhood. And so we used that with his migration unit, but it didn't stop there. So throughout the year, even when I was talking about certain novels or short stories, and I talked about character analysis, I would reiterate the push-pull factors. What motivated that character to do that? What pushed that character into doing that? Or what motivated that person to do whatever, etc.? What pulled that person over? What influenced that person? Influenced that person to do that. So I could take those concepts of the push-pull factors from his migration unit and apply it all throughout the year. You could even apply that to history when it comes to, again, using the war example, what pushed that culture into a certain war, what pulled that culture to do, into this war, or to migrate here and there. So applying it throughout multiple classes. So if an English teacher and a science teacher wanted to collaborate, they could see that essentially the scientific method and the way to write a proper paragraph is very similar. So I have a slide up here if you want to look at it. So scientific method in science class, students are asked to make an observation. In English class, we're asked our students to make a prediction or a theory. In science class, students form a hypothesis. In English class, they make a claim, an assertion, or an argument. In science class, students test and collect data. In English class, the students research. They find quotes. In science class, they examine results. In English class, they explain how evidence supports the claim. In science class, students are asked to draw conclusions. In English class, they're asked to explain significance or long-term impact, or how something will impact a person down the road. In science class, the students are asked to report the results. In English class, we write the essay. So I would tell science teachers this: I can show my students how to write in a proper format. You give them the knowledge on what you want them to learn, and then they can apply that knowledge into my writing, right? Or how they write. So it's not necessarily that science teachers are teaching students how to write. Let the English teachers do that. Allow the science teachers to let the students apply their scientific knowledge in the form of the writing. So we can work together with that, right? Cross curricular instruction that way. So ultimately, if you're deciding to use CCI in class, I would not put the pressure on yourself to use cross-curricular instruction all year. No, I would say this: start simple. Look, get with a teacher that you know, that you respect, and look at your lesson plans on both. Take your lesson plans, take the other teacher's lesson plans, see where you can line things up. If you're an English teacher, connect with a history, science, a math teacher. Look at what you're teaching, see where you can connect. Try it once, twice, 3 times. Try to hit 4 lessons a year if you can. Then start bringing in another teacher. If you're English and science and you try it and it becomes successful, think of where you can bring in a math teacher or a history teacher and go from there. And of course, the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. Students love this type of instruction. It's very efficient. That's all I got. Thanks, guys. Oh, sorry. One more thing. I will be following up with another video with a bunch of suggestions for cross-curricular units, including you math teachers. I'm not forgetting about you. And looking at different suggestions on the ways you can, use cross-curricular instruction in your classroom. Look for that in the next few weeks. Thanks.